One of the big defining characteristics of superheroes is their superheroics. They're stronger, they're faster, they can do crazy flips and punch out dozens of bad guys and fly and tear logs in half while making a point. But there comes a time for someone in a suit to do something cool and dangerous. When it's time to fall from a tall building or roll a brand new car, it's time to bring in the unknown stuntman or woman to take over. While they might not have the same acting chops, they have the action part of action hero down. Here's some stunt actors you'd mistake for the actors they're risking life and limb for. Carol Danvers may have gotten her powers from an exploding Tesseract-powered engine and her fight training from a duplicitous Kree soldier, but actor Brie Larson didn't have any of those things. While every actor likes to try and perform as many of their own stunts as possible, or if you're Tom Cruise, you just get yourself strapped to a plane because who is going to argue with Tom Cruise? There comes a time when both insurance and unwillingness to get hurt means that you have to step aside and let a professional take over. For those instances, Brie Larson was able to turn to someone who not only has a history of risking life and limb to make a sweet look action shot, but someone who has more experience than most being a superhero. Renee Moneymaker has been putting her Moneymaker on the line for years, being both Wasps in Ant-Man and the Wasp, standing in for both Evangeline Lilly and Michelle Pfeiffer, as well as doing stunts for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.'s resident Inhuman Chloe Bennett, who plays Quake. But she's not just an MCU hero, she's also stunted for Jennifer Lawrence in 2 X-Men movies, and for Rila Fukushima and Tao Okamoto in The Wolverine. And that's just scratching the surface for her 42 stunt credits in the last 8 years. Are we sure she's not actually a superhero in her spare time? Host countries tend to pull out all the stops when it comes to the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games. It's the best part, all of the smiling happy athletes, all the promise of 2 weeks of competition before anyone does something stupid and gets on the news for things not related to running fast and jumping far. They're like high-budget national talent shows, where stage set designers get to go nuts. For the 2000 Sydney Olympics opening ceremony, they tried to pantomime the history of Australia from all the way back to pre-continent times, meaning they started in the ocean with performers suspended above the arena being fish-like. One of those people making like they were deep in the water while high above the ground was Ingrid Klenning. That was only the beginning of her risk-taking lifestyle that eventually landed her doing the high-wire stunts in short shorts for Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad. Like before, her hero stand-in time isn't limited to Bad Boy Joker's Bad Girl Friday. She was also a stunt double for Robbie in The Legend of Tarzan and doubled for Brie Larson in Captain Marvel and Kong Skull Island. Did you remember that Brie Larson was in Kong Skull Island? Does anyone remember anything other than Samuel L. Jackson scowling at a giant ape? Chris Evans seems to have it all. That strong chin, those helicopter wrestling biceps. America's behind. What more could you ask for? When it comes time for danger, no one wants to hurt that face, so it's time to call in the expert. But you need someone with that solid chin and those log-splitting arms. Someone who fits the all-American image. So who better than a former University of North Carolina Wilmington baseball star and Philadelphia Phillies Sam Hargrave. Sam got into the risk-taking business as baseball ran its course for him at the request of his brother, who was a stunt coordinator on the Hunger Games. After some reluctance, he fell in love with taking tumbles on behalf of stars, and even took over his brother's pre-coordinator gig of donning the stars and stripes for Chris Evans as Captain America. The weight of being the first Avenger isn't lost on him, telling a local hometown news station, "I'm a kid from Hurdle Mills, North Carolina. I'm sitting here with the Captain America suit on. It's super special for me." And regarding taking on his brother's role, he says, "It gives me chills thinking about it. Big brother and now little brother have worn the suit, kind of passed on the tradition. It's fantastic." In her role as Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson does a lot more than cocking an eyebrow and making that, well, look, or making Tony Stark uncomfortable. She also does a lot of jumping and flipping and crushing bad guy heads with her legs. Even when tied to a chair, she's a deadly force. That is to say, Black Widow is. Scarlett Johansson has a lot of talents, but flipping backwards while tied to a chair isn't one of them. For that, you might want to turn to a competitive gymnast for all the flipping around. That means getting Heidi Moneymaker on set. Wait, Moneymaker, didn't we already cover her? Nope, that was her sister Renee, who was also a competitive gymnast. There's more than one Moneymaker making money doing stunts. Like her multi-hero sister, Moneymaker doesn't just make hers Marvel. She's also provided danger duty on the big screen adaptation of Hellblazer Constantine and was a stunt performer for Marvel before there was an MCU in Spider-Man 3. Oh, and remember that time Captain Marvel wailed on a nice old lady on a bus that turned out to be a rogue Skrull? Well, once the wailing commenced, that nice little old lady was Heidi. It's hard to find someone like Chris Hemsworth. Usually to do that, you gotta go to the next available family member, Liam Hemsworth. In fact, Liam Hemsworth was the first Hemsworth to be considered for the role of the God of Thunder Thor for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He never caught on in the role, and when they went looking again, Josh Whedon asked to give Chris another look after working with him on Cabin in the Woods. When it comes time to start jumping around and taking risks though, brother Liam isn't going to cut it. Liam also has a pretty face, and he needs to keep pretty for his own acting career. So you guessed it, Chris has to turn to an almost look-alike in the form of Bobby Holland Hanton, who has been Chris Hemsworth's body double on more than one occasion. But Thor, Hanton will admit, is the hardest. Talking to the New Zealand Herald, Hanton talked about what goes into being Danger Thor, saying, "Chris is already huge. He's much bigger than me naturally, so I have to train twice a day." When the Infinity Saga kicked into high gear, so did the demands for Hanton's Danger work with filming for Ragnarok bleeding straight into Infinity War and Endgame, forcing him to stay in Thor shape for a year and a half. Wonder Woman is an icon several times over. She's part of the Holy Trinity over at DC Comics alongside Batman and Superman as the royalty of the golden age of comics, setting the standard for comic book superheroes for decades to come. While her Trinity brothers Superman and Batman have had numerous adaptations on both the big and small screen, the Amazonian superstar hasn't had quite the same look, only managing a TV series that is arguably one of the most beloved superhero TV shows of all time, thanks in no part to Linda Carter's portrayal of Diana Prince. And that funky theme. We're not sure what "get us out from under" Wonder Woman means, but we're into it. Wonder Woman finally got the big screen treatment she deserved, with Gal Gadot filling the role of Wonder Woman, so far with no invisible jets. Gadot might look absolutely stunning in Wonder Woman's battle gear and, well, just about anything really. And when it comes to kicking and punching time, Gadot hands the lasso off to Alicia Vela Bailey. Alicia is another gymnast turned risk taker who also crosses superhero company lines, portraying the inhuman Alicia Whitley in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where she's her own stunt double. She was also Gamora actor Zoe Saldana's stunt double in Avatar. The Deadpool of X-Men Origins Wolverine might be something most fans want to forget, but Reynolds as Deadpool is still everything they want. Fortunately, Disney doesn't have to find a new actor to play the merc with the mouth in the new MCU with mutants and the Fantastic Four, but they do need a new Deadpool when it comes time to do all the dangerous stuff. That man is Scott Adkins. Scott Adkins is an action actor in his own right, and it turns out what Ryan Reynolds would look like if he wasn't smirking. Adkins did the stunt doubling and serious face, we assume, for Reynolds in X-Men Origins, but it's not all bad for the straight-to-video martial arts star. He also played one of the Zealots in Doctor Strange. Natalie Portman's role in the first two Thor movies might have been to make science-sounding explanations for all the crazy stuff happening and sneaking peeks at Thor's abs, but that doesn't mean that she didn't get in on the action herself now and then. Portman's Jane Foster isn't the action hero star that some of the others are, at least not yet. Soon, she'll be wielding a hammer of her own in Thor: Love and Thunder, making Thor the first Avenger to get 4 solo movies. Who saw that coming after Dark World? Spanish actor Elsa Pataky got her start with a traveling theater troupe called Teatro Camera de Angel Gutierrez before getting cast in international productions that played in Spain, France, and England. When Hobbs showed up in the car smash 'em up franchise Fast and the Furious, she was Hobbs' partner, where she's appeared in the 5th through 8th installment. Pataky was a body double for Portman in Thor: The Dark World, but not in the way that you think. What did she do for Portman in the movie? Well, she really took one for the team when Portman wasn't available for a last-minute shoot for the movie's mid-credits scene where Thor returns to Earth and kisses Jane Foster. She's had a lot of practice smooching Thor, however. She's married to Chris Hemsworth. Superman can be a career-defining role. From George Reeves to Christopher Reeves, lots of Reeves in there, Dean Cain, Tom Welling, Brandon Routh. Okay, not for Brandon Routh, but he's on Legends of Tomorrow in the Arrowverse. He's doing fine. Henry Cavill is the current owner of the tights and cape as the DCEU tries to capture some of that Marvel shared universe magic. He plays the man who's faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. He also can make mustaches disappear, while a team of effects artists can if he stays still enough in the shot. Cavill can't be all the things Superman is. That takes another team of special effects artists and for a man named Paul Darnell to do some of the heavy stunting for the Man of Steel. Darnell was the stunt double for Cavill in Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Darnell also has the strange distinction of being a stunt double for Adam Sandler, when Sandler was an Israeli assassin who just wanted to cut hair, and you don't mess with the Zohan. As the stunt double for Elodie Yung, performing as the formidable and cunning assassin Elektra on the hit Netflix series Daredevil, Lauren Mary Kim had to put her expertise in fight choreography and mixed martial arts to the test. She's followed Young around as her stunt double in other shows, appearing in The Defenders, and was even her acrobat double on Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so she's been a part of the MCU for quite some time. As beautiful as Young and possessing the same exotic charm, she trains in Taekwondo, Wushu, Silat, Filipino martial arts, Jeet Kune Do, and the graceful dance like Capoeira. Yeah, she can have you on the ground tapping out in a matter of milliseconds. Kim's action genre credits include Star Trek, Fast 7, Total Recall, and the Transformers movies, so she hasn't just worked as Elodie Young's stunt double. She's been a fight choreographer and stunt double for a little over 10 years and is just getting started. Stars from the Squared Circle have a history of transitioning their wrestling fame into an acting career, some more successful than others. Rowdy Roddy Piper may have peaked at They Live, but that movie has become a cult classic. Hulk Hogan might have had to settle for reality show fame and infamy, but other wrestlers have become box office gold, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. John Cena's trying to get in on that magic as well by doing the requisite tough guy with adorable kids movie. Worked out great for Hulk Hogan and Mr. Nanny, right? Well, it worked out better for The Rock and the Tooth Fairy. Dave Bautista has gone the superhero route, playing the big bad Drax the Destroyer in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. No adorable kids, not yet at least. While Bautista might be accustomed to flying in from the top turnbuckle or throwing Batista bombs, which are really just the other wrestler being thrown down really hard, movies are a different animal, and for that, of course, bring in the stunt double. Rob de Groot, not to be confused with fellow Guardian Groot, is a frequent Batista stand-in, because there are only so many giant bald men who can take a fall. Speaking of giant men, he also provided Hulk motion capture for Age of Ultron. There's a tradition that comes with Batman casting announcements. Everyone hates them. Most of the time, these dire predictions don't come true, and the actor does just fine, bat nipples aside, and while not every outing on the big screen has been the best, the actor does fine, and becomes the example of who the new guy can't hold a candle to when their movie comes out. For everyone who thinks Michael Keaton is the definitive cinematic Batman, there were at least two who thought it was the worst casting ever before 1989's Batman came out. It's Robert Pattinson's turn now in the hot seat after Ben Affleck donned the cowl for Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice and Justice League. For whatever other problems Batman has had, one of the things that they did right was a dynamic fighting Batman after years of various Batman movies, where Batman couldn't move his neck, much less be the brutal fighter. For that fighting, they turned to another former wrestler, Albert Valadares. He was so good at his job, he also did some stand-in for Superman while he was at it. Over on Netflix, while it lasted, we got a sneak peek into the darker end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the Defenders series, which featured Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and the hard-drinking, no-nonsense, super-powered Private Eye, Jessica Jones. Jones was the odd one out in the superhero universe because she wanted nothing to do with that superhero life, making a costume, or coming up with a cool made-up name. She wanted to do just enough private investigating gigs to pay the rent and then keep her in enough booze that she can forget that one encounter she had with a superpowered baddie in the mind-controlling Purple Man, Kilgrave. Jessica Jones was portrayed by Kristen Ritter, who managed to turn deadpan disgusting face into a pure art form. While she was able to weaponize shade, Jessica Jones wasn't completely able to avoid having to use her own super strength and ability to jump without coming down. Us mortals call that flying, but she was reluctant to, which means that it's time to bring in someone who can weaponize punching people. That person was Deborah DJ Rostenberg. With 50 stunt credits, she's no stranger to punching and falling, having even taken on John Wick as a stunt performer for the second movie. Catwoman is a tricky proposition. It can be a surprising turn for a dramatic actor vamping and camping it up as the cat-themed cat burglar. It can also be one of the most widely derided movies of all time and follow the also successful actor onto other roles even when she wins an Oscar. There's probably more people who know about Halle Berry's raise for Catwoman than there are who know about her Oscar for Monsters Ball. Anne Hathaway's turn in the catsuit had the added pressure of being the Batman movie that followed The Dark Knight. Those are big shoes to fill and high expectations to meet. A lot of Catwoman stunts involve not just slinking around, but ripping through Gotham on the Batpod, the Dark Knight Trilogy's Batbike. For that kind of action, you want a stand-in that can ride. Like the first woman to pull off a backflip on a full-size dirt bike. That person is Jolene Van Vute, the Nitro Circus star, handled Hathaway's driving duties for The Dark Knight Rises, and for once, compared to her other job, it must have seemed like a Sunday drive. Doctor Strange's role in the comics is generally to give people bad news about fate and the inner workers of the interdimensional worlds. It's all part of the burden of being the Sorcerer Supreme and having an eye on all of the strings of fate. That doesn't mean he doesn't get into his fair share of scuffles. Even when he's solving problems by summoning magical energies from parallel dimensions, there's call for some rough and tumble. When it's time for Cumberbatch to get into action, they turn to Leo Woodruff. Woodruff has been stunting all across the multiverse, not just for Doctor Strange, but also the Guardians, and even in Gotham in Dark Knight Rises. He's even spent time in Westeros doing stunts for Game of Thrones as well as stunt driving for Spider-Man Far From Home. He started early in the MCU, stunt doubling for Marcy's would-be boyfriend in Thor, The Dark World. Those are some of the stunt performers who could replace the stars. Well, if those stars need someone doing some dangerous stunts. Who's your favorite stand-in? Who would you like to come out from the stunt team and become a superhero full-time? Let us know in the comments, and hey, while you're at it, why not subscribe to CBR? Thanks for watching.